Welcome to this week's episode of the Rutledge Perspective podcast. I am thrilled to have my guest today. For those of you who have been following me for a while, you know how much I also have a heart for education as a child of educators for several generations. And was able to meet Lisa, and you're going to hear why we connected, but she's got such a great story. And so I'm going to give you a quick introduction to her, and then we're going to dive right in because I want you to hear everything she's been doing. So Lisa Caprelli is a speaker, songwriter, and an award-winning author of the unicorn book series, Unicorn Jazz. She is an author of 17 books and has produced music videos for her kids or for kids. Her 25 years plus in marketing and branding, over 150 CEOs, led her to changing her life in 2018 to create a children's brand, Unicorn Jazz. She's been featured in Forbes magazine, ABC News, CBS News, USA Today newspapers, and many more media and news outlets. This best-selling author is proud to be the first generation to graduate from college, graduating magna cum laude with a Bachelor's of Science degree in social psychology. Her passion for studying human behavior and teaching is seen in her work. Lisa, thank you for being a part of the Rutledge Perspective.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I brought my little puppet friends, Unicorn Jazz and Twisiki, and we can talk about that during your podcast and all the amazing work. And I'm so grateful that you have a passion for youth. And I truly believe the children are our future. We were once them. And I love that there's many ways many of us can pay it forward in getting involved in helping and serving.
Absolutely. This is just going to be so cool because I think your story, what I love about your story is I have people on my podcast who have been kind of in that corporate setting and then, done entrepreneurship, and they maybe even have written a book, but to come from where you are, and full disclosure, we're both Texans, right? Yes. And to come from that and to make such a significant change, right? And really take off and sit into that is just amazing. So why don't we start here? Yes. Let's start with giving me kind of this really quick history of Lisa, like you did when we first met the same time, from El Paso to kind of where you are now.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I love being Texas born and raised. Yeah. And I grew up in El Paso, Texas. It's a borderland. It's a desert. It's far west Texas. If you haven't been there, bordering New Mexico, and it could almost in Mexico. It's a border town, Juarez, Mexico. Really like right across, it seems, the street in a way that I say that because when people visit, they don't realize how like that's Mexico, and it's a third world country. And so I grew up really poor, and then we would cross the border and we're like, that is poorer than us. So, as much as I grew up poor, I often say, how do you know you're poor unless someone tells you? Yes. Because we did grow up with a lot of love. I grew up in a large Hispanic family. My grandmother had a third grade education. She was forced to drop out of school because her mother died. And she had to raise her family. She grew up picking cotton in La Union, New Mexico. And she became one of my greatest influences at a young, early, impressionable age. I always grew up, I was super shy, like my character, Unicorn Jazz. Let me get it, because I know this is a video based as well.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yes.
Unicorn Jazz is shy. Yeah. And she overcomes that, as I have in life. And so my grandmother always believed in me, and as she did with all her grandchildren. And one thing she would impress upon us, which I impress upon others today, is get an education, learn as much as you can, become a lifelong learner. Thanks to YouTube, Google, and all these platforms, we have great shows like yours. Like, there's unlimited learning we can do. And so I did just that. I actually got A's in almost everything I did. I went on and graduated magna cum laude with my social psychology degree. And it was life-changing for me, the ways I grew up that have transformed into now. So I left Texas when I was 29 years old, about 20 years ago. I just turned 50, so that's the math. Yeah. And then I came here with nothing but like $100. That's the story. And I came here with smile, kindness, the Texans are known for, and people did notice that, like, where are you from? And I was, you're so nice. And I'm like, isn't everyone supposed to be nice? But I just think that's something that's told about Texans. I know there's nice people everywhere. Right. And I figured out how to start my own business through being an entrepreneur and what that would mean. And I started a mortgage real estate company back then, but it was my marketing and vision that helped create it. Did really well, had partners. did that until about to the recession that happens in 08 and 9 were to come.
Right.
By that time, we had really made a lot of money, which is not everything in business. We know that, we heard that.
Right.
I really took a look at my life, and I didn't really love what I was doing, and it didn't have purpose and passion. It had money, but not purpose and passion. And at that time, I walked away from the business, sold my whatever portion. It was not a good time to have done that, but I still did.
Right.
And then took a leap of faith on my skill set that had helped me with all the companies I had helped then, including my own, and it was marketing. People were telling me, how did you make it big then? And what, we were doing radio ads before social media.
Yeah.
And I would write the messages, and I just outside the box thinking. We had our own radio programs. We were on FM radio, AM. Again, this is all before social media. That's how quickly things have happened. I wrote a book called Color Your Message, The Art of Digital Marketing and Social Media. Along the way, I started a marketing company, a PR company, and started helping all kinds of brands. They would come to me, whether it was a Toyota dealership, a medical device company, authors, brands, all kinds. And sometimes I never knew nothing about this company. And I was sometimes like, how am I supposed to market? I don't know what a hypercar McLaren is. No, we want you, the brains behind this. And it just came with getting involved, learning. Marketing is learning the brand as if you were a consumer. And then using the messages of social media and marketing, video. So I became like the brains behind that, leading teams. And we were able to help company after company rise to success. And so after doing that for some time, I had the bug in me, like, what can I do for the younger generation? What could even though I've been working with adults most of my life, I kind of sound like Benjamin Button. I started working with adults, then the youth, the teens. This book was written for young entrepreneur minds. Skip a step. Party wisdom for young entrepreneur minds, which can be any one of us, teens, college students. And then now I work with children, which we'll get into with Unicorn Jazz. So I went on a 2.5-year journey researching what makes for meaning and happiness, and asking entrepreneurs and leaders. It's not about, did you make a business so that you can make a lot of money? And that was not the intention. It was, what was your purpose and meaning? And what would you tell your 7-year-old self? What would you tell your 13-year-old, your 21-year-old self? When you pass on this earth, what do you want to be known for? So I got so many great stories and notable people in here. And then I'm chapter 13 with my story, and it having the heart and meaning and passion that I feel many of us should and can have. And I was after that book, along the way, I still have my marketing company, and I wanted to just do what does Lisa Caprelli want to do on her own, independent branded company. At that time, I spent my life helping others, as we do. When you're a follower, you're supporting great leaders, and we need to do that in life. And I wanted to create a really big brand that would resonate with my business background. I could write. I often say my only voice on paper as a child was writing. I grew up shy, so that was my outlet. I read other books by then, Color Your Message, Skip a Step, other books. And I just wanted to do a children's brand. And I said, well, how can I start with my own IP, my own intellectual property that no one can copy per se? And it was going to be stories. It was going to be books. I by then I said, I know how to create stories and books, and I can come up with fast messages with the Twitter, with the message, with the video. I could do it with children. And to me, I thought it was going to be easier, funner, and of course, keep you young at heart. And it did more than that. So I came out with Unicorn Jazz with my first book. Unicorn Jazz moves to a new land in search of new friends.
That's
it feels like she doesn't belong until she meets a crow named Wolf that believes in her. And again, remember I talked about my grandmother believing in me, and many people in her life, I say, believed in you. You know, whether it was a teacher, mentor, friend. Hey, maybe you believe in someone, and you're like the crow. So
that's
how
awesome.
So did that, and I didn't know how much Unicorn Jazz and its work would change me in going into schools, being able to present and speak to the entire schools. Then the pandemic happened, and I can't go into schools anymore. It changed my life, like many of us, went virtually to school visits all over the world. And then along the way, during the pandemic, I created a show. It's on Amazon TV now. It's called Unicorn Jazz. Presents the thing I do. I love everyone to listen to it, watch it. Of course, we always love reviews. We need them. And we brought some of our characters in Unicorn Jazz to life with puppets, Unicorn Jazz, and Trey Ziki.
Awesome.
And Trey Ziki has his own game show. And so that's the short story of what I've done so far.
Well, and it's so, I think what's really good about this story is you said a few things. One, that whole idea of poverty and what poverty is. There's the realities of poverty, right? The socioeconomic challenges of growing up not having enough, right? Not knowing when your next meal is coming from, not all of the practical stuff. And I say often that, at some point, practicality can outweigh possibility, right? That's what happens to us as beings. You have to take care of the practical. But what was beautiful about what you said that I think translates into entrepreneurs and people who've decided their career is going to be in corporate, who are feeling kind of put upon or not having as much opportunity, is that what you did have was being surrounded by people who believed in you, being surrounded by love, right? Finding those people. And we talk about a lot on the Rutledge Perspective about that village. That's why I say you got to find your village, those people who really surround you. So, so if you think about kind of this journey and now, and congratulations, right? Having this show on Amazon TV, talk a little bit about who you put around you, as you built this business, as you started moving. How did you build your village to get there?
That's an excellent question, because that's one of the things I just say. I'm just a representative of what I've done with Unicorn Jazz, and I'm the spokesperson. I had to learn how to be, like you being a podcast host, there's things I'm sure you had to figure out, but you're like, this is what I want to do. And you learn from collective wisdom. So when I speak to children and audiences, I share that being kind is so important. One of my books is called I See You Choosing Kindness. And, I was teased and bullied as a child and made fun of for wearing glasses. So this book is not about wearing glasses, but it's about how we can all choose being kind with the words we say, with helping others, things like that. And so I say to children and adults who listen to the messages and love them is to be kind to people growing up in life. You never know when, that girl that you're friends with in elementary school or high school is going to grow up to be a principal, and that she's going to invite you to her school when you launch your book, which happened. My sister's an early elementary school teacher. She helped me with her when I was like, I need help with how would I do curriculum? What's your feedback on the stories? And that's the team. And this is my sister. Of course, through the love, you're going to help your family. Like, be nice to your family, because somehow families may not help each other. Right. There's no way in my family that we're not going to help. My family, one of the things that my family in one word I would describe is love. I think sometimes when you have hard times in your life or hard beginnings as children, as we did and many people can relate to, is there'll be a way that maybe you found love. I hope you did, and if you didn't, there's always ways to transform and change your life, like you said, with the village. And during the pandemic, it's taught us we need fellowship, we need people. So during the pandemic, I would just connect, whether it was an Instagram with a stranger or someone I knew, like someone that had kids or someone that had a purpose to help others, teachers, librarians, that want to help. We're naturally born that we want to help. We don't want to see people hurting. The pandemic, we saw people hurting. Like, how do we come out of this? The isolation part of it. So I reached out to professional kid actresses, Broadway singers, musicians, dancers, and one by one would get them on the phone and say, I want to create a show called The Thing I Do. It's based on my book and song. And I have many songs by now. Yeah. Can your child do a 30-second song or exciting, presentation about the thing they do for kids? Yes. And I would guide it. And then we stitched those together to create the video pieces. But the moms would tell me, well, normally you would never have access to my kid. They would be on Broadway stages. They'd be doing auditions. Like, they wouldn't care about some new idea, vision, baby show like mine, and infancy stage. And I said, but they do have the time. And this is for greater good. Like, let's bring happiness to people. That's something we can do. And once I got one kid, they would tell another kid, because that's how things are by word of mouth. And so what started off is, how am I going to get kids? My kids are grown. Right. And I got professional kids, and I have many now. I have talent agencies that send me kids to share with the show and the children and families the thing they do. And it's been through helping people, asking. You have to be persistent when you want to create your village sometimes. And then it's not just going to knock on your door. Hey, we're your village.
Right. Right. And that's the thing I think that people sometimes forget is there is work involved. I mean, we have to be careful because we've glorified being busy, right? We've glorified this hustle and grind. And if you don't get what you want, you just didn't hustle enough. You just didn't work hard enough. You didn't, we just, everything we have.
And we all get the same 24 hours in a day. We are busy. It says everyone.
Yes, exactly. And we create so much pressure that if you're not achieving in your timing, you must not be doing something right. And we create drama and mess where there isn't any, as opposed to just saying, you got to put in the work, but you also have to be really self-aware and know when it's time to know who you are and when it's time to just take a break. And what I love about you and your movement, which resonated with me as well, is you talk about being shy, right? You talk about kind of shying away from people and being bullied. And I am very much an introvert, right? I'm an empath and an introvert. So I absorb all this energy and it just drains me. And yet here I am doing a podcast, right? I'm doing a live radio show. So you have gone from, this really shy kid to having a show about kids, to being on TV, right? To helping CEOs. Talk a little bit about how you still are you, but how you took the things that you love and the passion that you loved and kind of pushed through or helped turn something that could have kept you silent, right, into something that became big for you, right? And an asset.
Yeah. Thank you. And by the way, you would not know that about you. Thanks for sharing, because we share that in common. So, and you're awesome.
Thank you.
And I think for the first part of the pandemic, for me at least, you're kind of like in bed. What do I do? Watching the social media. I joined for social media groups, Facebook groups that went from like 1,000 to 10,000.
Yes.
And it was interesting to study the psychology, and my background in social psychology, studying human behavior. I definitely was studying it from the educators, moms, and children's perspective. And because if you understand things and how people feel, that's going to move you, right? And so after a couple of weeks, knowing this pandemic is here, question mark, how long is it going to be? I just said, well, what can I do? Like I have to stay focused on what you can do, not on what you can. What you can't do is always available, and the negative is always available. How do you focus on the positive? I was already bringing happiness to children, and I loved it. I was on a tour by tour, and for me, with the pandemic, if the pandemic didn't happen, I would have sold more books and done so many more things, traveled more, been faster there than what's going to happen. But what can I do? Well, I know that when as schools open up and beyond virtual, in person, which is my greatest, we all love human connection like that, is I could create more books for when I go back. I have a background in media. I was able to get kids together with my idea for the show that we tested first on YouTube and Facebook Live. Right. A lot of work. My whole day went from like, what do I do, to like, this is the most work I've ever done in my life. Right. But I loved it. We used a simple sock puppet in the beginning for happiness news that we'd come up with, music like I'm, Unicorn Jack, and I got people like to help me be the voices with green screen. That's why you show up the green screen. Kids love to learn about that. And we would laugh, but there was something educational in it, kind of like Sesame Street. And so I had this vision of how to direct and put it together. Some of my sisters were like, "It's really weird. We're doing these sock puppets for you. We don't know why, but we're going to indulge Lisa with her idea." And by the way, what my son says, my 30-year-old son who plays the voice of Trey Ziki, he's actually a nurse.
That's awesome.
He did a little acting when he was young. And by the way, everyone loves Trey Ziki and his voice. Yes. You have to watch the show, and it's so fun.
Absolutely.
And so one thing my son has said to me, many years ago, because he's grown up with me, and he's seen me, rise as an entrepreneur, all the work it takes. So much so that's why he chose a nurse. He goes, I never wanted to be your mom. I see how much you work. Right. Okay, I like doing this, right? We all have the things we do. Yeah. But he said to me, Mom, one thing I will say is a lot of people have ideas. You have a lot of really good ones that work out. Not everything works out. Right. but when you believe in it and you can manifest it and build a team around it. So I knew I was going to build a show, and I had a vision to get it on some streaming network. I got on Amazon TV for now. And then along the way with the stories already going to school, people were asking for them to be animated. So we're working on that. I was able to then bring some of my characters into puppets. I wouldn't have done this, if I didn't have that time that the pandemic gave us.
Right. Well, and that's, I think, it's the one reason I call my shows The Rutledge Perspective, because I believe if you change your perspective, you can change your circumstances. Yeah. And as you said, if this pandemic has been hard, let me rephrase that. The pandemic is hard because it's not over, right? The pandemic is hard. It's hard on everyone. And it's also been an opportunity for a lot of people who had to just stop and be still. When we couldn't go out and just socialize. We had to figure out a different way to connect. It gave us time to really decide what was important. It gave us time to reconnect with the things that we were really passionate about. And it has been hard. It's been tough. And please, your son's a nurse. We thank him for his work and his willingness to be there, right, through all of this. Because I know it's tough. My mom's a retired surgical nurse, so that whole healthcare. Bless their hearts. They are truly angels.
He's like, we didn't get time off. That's what he's
No, not at all. They didn't get to go home and rest. Right. And so, but that idea of converting it and looking back and saying, yes, this was hard. Yes, it was tough. I could have just stayed in bed. But as you said, I started with little sock puppets. It's progress over perfection. Just do something. If you wait until you're ready, you will never do it.
And I will tell you, in my head, because, being a children's author is a competitive platform. I kept thinking, and I own a children's Facebook group of 6,000 authors and illustrators. And I just kept thinking, someone's going to copy my idea. I got to do it fast. First of all, no one has. But still, right? Because to me, I don't want to say it was easy. It was work. But it was easy in the step. I describe when you have a business or you create a campaign or strategy or book, it's just a bunch of steps. Right. Then action behind it, assignment, who does it, leadership. Right. And then you get done. And that's how I look at things. If you look at, okay, I'm going to create a children's show, but I already was already doing video editing for my social media. Right. I was doing it for clients before I started. I learned how, because I had to when they need a commercial. Right. Sometimes you learn how, or you find the people and then you learn so that you save money. Right. And so it's like there's the saying that's not mine. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. Absolutely. And with that, I knew I had to do the Facebook Lives and introduce, and I started doing that. And I remember I would cringe. I did not like being on camera with no audience. Yeah. We weren't used to that. Many of us. Yes. And I would prepare myself all week, showing the videos of what we did. That was easy. Yeah. And I said, I might be shy, but my puppet's not shy. Right. Right. Like, going up with the puppet. And I realized, like, God, what if I had this as a child? Which is why we introduce them into the classrooms now. Yes. Yeah. It's amazing how, if we think about the why as opposed to the what, it's so much easier to do the what, right? Because I'm like you, the idea of being on camera, doing video all the time. I mean, my radio show is live every week. So I'm on camera in front of people every week. You could not have told me, right, 3 years ago, 6 months ago, that I would not only be doing it, but actually loving it. Because I like being behind the scenes, right? I like doing other stuff. And even being on video, I hate being on video. But what I've realized is it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about how I can serve, how I can get a message, how I can have reached that one person who's like, oh, well, if she made it, then I can. Or if she got through that, I know I'm not crazy, right? It's that idea that the thing that we hate to do is often the thing that gets us where we need to be. And if we'll just push through, right, the reward on the other end is just amazing. Yeah, based on that, there's a quote, you must do the thing you cannot do. I forgot who said it. I think it's Wayne Dyer. And I have these little mantras that in my 20s, in reading and self-help and development, which there's so much today, especially with great podcasts and platforms like yourself. collective wisdom. And I think because I have a writer's brain, and when someone says a great word, I write it down. Or they say, I always say, if someone says something good that resonates to you, write it down. Well, or put it in your phone, in your notes.
Right.
and as I'm talking to people, or like even the show, the great conversations, the things that you say, I'll go back to them, and I like want them to be part of my memory and part of my, serving and messages. And we all have the ability to do that, to be lifelong learners and lifelong givers.
Well, and I think what's key about it, because lifelong learning is key for me. One of the things I've realized, and especially if you through the pandemic, but even more so for those who have left corporate or decided to do their own thing, there's that time by yourself, because your head, at least my head, can be really, really messy. It can be messy. The head trash in there, right, is just enormous.
Yeah. And women have that. Women have it, I think, more than men.
Yes.
And we've described, my sisters have described, like, a girl's brain is like, think about a computer with all the tabs open.
Yes.
And we have many tabs, and we can switch from one topic to another, one hat to another.
Yes.
And sometimes men are like, I only had 3 tabs open.
Right. But the problem is we have all those tabs open, and then all of a sudden you get the beach ball, right? It's like nothing's working. Nothing's coming up. Nothing. You're just sitting, right, in paralysis. And yet the growth, right? The connection, the ability to see things in yourself and in others that you may never have seen before, because you took the time and you just kind of pushed through. And I'm always careful with telling people push through, because we are so quick to judge hustle, to judge effort, right?
Yes.
Because someone's effort doesn't look as much as ours. But the reality is we don't know what race someone has run before they get to us. We have no idea what people are going through. And to have something like Unicorn Jazz, right? This idea of this really, really shy, unicorn who made it, right? This whole idea of shyness may be a challenge, but it's not a derailer, right?
No.
It is, and it may be a detour, right? But it doesn't make things impossible.
Right. Or what if we needed to be different? And that we are all supposed to be unique. That's why I did unique. Jazz. People ask me, how did you get the name? That's when it's to celebrate your uniqueness. Going back to my childhood as of now, growing up, I always wished I wasn't shy. I wish I was popular, extroverted. And I would feel bad about myself. Well, how come no one ever made me feel good about it? Because now I say, you know what? Guess what that shy girl was good at doing? When you're not talking, what are you doing? You're listening. You're observing the world around you. Right?
Yes.
Which led to my growing up and seeing people's face expressions, because it's not about you. It's about being in the world around you. And but I wrote, that was my expression. When the teacher would say, write 3 paragraphs, I wrote 10. Going to college, write an essay, 3 pages. I wrote numerous. Right. And my writing was always praised all through my life. And it was really, and I always just impress upon children, because maybe they don't like writing, and they, I'm not meant to be a doctor. We need them to be their own thing.
Exactly.
And, but it was all the writing and messaging. There's writing in a social media post. There's writing before you do a video, before you do a movie. There's writing in getting someone to be on your show, or asking someone, there's the messaging. So I've written so much in my life now that one thing people don't know about me is I can come up with stories really quickly. They're going to be fictional in nature. Right. My fantasy brain. Right. and it's, so I tell the people, like, so if you're shy, embrace that. Like, for the people that aren't shy, embrace that. We need them, but we need you too. We all need each other. That's the team. Absolutely. That's the village that makes the world go round.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's that whole thing you talked about with lifelong learning. I mean, my parents started reading to us when we were infants, right? They'd have to prop us up on a pillow to be able to read to us. But there's so much that you learn. There's so many ways your brain begins to imagine and develop if you'll just read. And quite frankly, I think that's one of the challenges we have now, is that people don't read.
Yeah.
And many who do read don't read to comprehend, right? Our ability to comprehend information, because there's so much, but our ability to comprehend information and to discern, truth from fiction, to be able to absorb and use what we're getting and use the information to gather insight, to be able to make decisions, right, is so important. And it starts when we're young. It starts with the stories. It starts with getting kids excited about knowledge. And as you mentioned, and I hope people really heard that, there is no better time than through this pandemic to truly lean into learning, because there is stuff everywhere. Yes. Everywhere. What better? I don't remember when I said this. This was a long time ago. I said, if we were going to have a pandemic, there was probably no better time from a technology perspective, right? Because
oh my God,
you can get on the phone, you can do Google, you can do audiobooks. You're only disconnected, right, from an access perspective, which is a whole socioeconomic discussion, right? Yeah. But the availability of information is so different compared to if this had happened generations ago.
No,
there's no excuse.
No, like my grandmother went through the Great Depression and tells me like they had no technology, zero. Yeah. So again, taking advantage of, like you said, and I was excited that like I got this kid, Julian Lerner, Broadway kid that was April of the pandemic year.
Yes.
That I said, can you read Unicorn Jazz and play the song, your take on it? And he's, by the way, he's one of the key actors on the Wonder Years.
Awesome. Yes.
So now I'm like, we had Julian Lerner, you know, and
yes.
and I got to know the families, and they're in New York, and said anytime you come down, you know, and they wanted to help because it was like sharing happiness for the greater good of people.
Yes.
And it's just been a great time in the taking advantage of the time. And again, remember, we didn't know how long the pandemic was going to be. For me,
right.
My opinion was it was going to go through August of 2020.
Right.
Then it went the whole school year.
Yes. You know, and here we are. Yeah.
And I'm calling this time right now pandemic 3. I'm calling it that. Because it's still this uncertainty, which I'm sure it's going to pass. So it's got to.
It will. Yeah, it will. Well, I tell you what, we could have this conversation for another 3 hours, but I really want people to understand, and we're going to, just so you guys know, we will put, Lisa's information in the show notes. You'll see that. We'll put links to her books, so you can find all of this kind of stuff. And we'll put the information so you can get in touch with her, so that as you are looking at maybe things to do for your school, to do for your students, that she would absolutely be an amazing option for you. So we'll make sure all of that stuff is there for you. But as we look at closing, Lisa, and people start thinking about how they're moving forward, and we, at least in Texas, I'm sure you're seeing it too. I mean, we're going back again to, schools having to close at least for periods of time, because it's just this Delta variant is insane. For people who are thinking, here we go again, I was just trying to get back a little bit of normal, how do I really just find something and move forward, right? And remain kind. What are your key pieces of advice to people right now?
I love that question.
Just moving forward.
I love that question, because it's still me. I fall in that category, and I just said, how can I help more and serve more? When you take the focus off of you, the opposite of selfish is to help others, give your life away in something. Maybe you're a guitarist and you could put a song together that's for a profit or something. We put together with different children's charities a book drive donation that we now are doing year round, started since the pandemic, where we ask people, can you send us just one book, a children's book of any age? We will spare them and donate them to the children's hospital. And we will donate them to a Los Angeles food bank, the community that's very, very much in need. Yeah. And it's an orphanage in Las Vegas. And we just got connected with the kids in Haiti who need books. And some children will see our social media posts, because we got some of our Unicorn Jazz kids to post like, I'm giving my allowance to Unicorn Jazz. And then that encourages the art of giving. Just one book. Some people will send, order. We have Amazon wish list. They just click and they'll order $100. And we disperse them. We show the story in social media, so people like that feel good aspect. And again, what I love about this is that we're not asking for money. We're not giving an eighth of a book. We're giving the whole book.
The whole book. The whole book. Yes. Yes.
And that's my mission and give back, is help and give others. I talk about it so much, and I love a platform like yours, is is we do it so much in different capacities.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this even when I was young. Even though we grew up poor, we still always volunteered. My sisters and I would go to a hospital and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it would fill up our time, and it makes you happy by giving your life away like that. So people can get behind something that they like to do, and you know, and watch how that changes your life and how things come together.
Absolutely. One of the best things we can do to learn who we are is to serve others, right? The best thing we can do to build our heart is to serve others.
And we're going to put it together in pictures like we did in Being Happy pages, a lot of art. We're actually creating a help and give back book that will be out by December of year 2021. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be full art pages like the Being Happy book.
That's great.
You can help and give back, can be, donating a book for a nonprofit, like I said, a hospital, helping like images like what Habitat for Humanity does.
Yes.
Mission work, there's different things. And so what parents like to hear the messages, and the children, is they have something to give. And maybe you want to lead it, maybe you want to co-lead. I'm growing it with different people helping me, because it's becoming enormous. And and for me, it's like, okay, I need volunteers, and they will come to you when you ask.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And I think that message, everybody, is as hard as it is, right? Sometimes the one thing that can pull us out of that head trash, out of that really bad space, is to go help somebody else, right? Just go help someone else. If it's 5 minutes, right? If it's helping your neighbor cross the street, it does not have to be giving millions and millions of dollars. It doesn't have to be something big and dramatic. And you don't have to just tell everybody. It's just about, what can you do in your space, right? In your town, on your block? What is the little thing that you can do? Because you never know when just that one smile, just that, if you're getting a Starbucks, paying for the person behind you, that one little thing that can change the trajectory of somebody's day. You just never know. You never know. So Lisa, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being a guest on the show today. This has just been amazing.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this interview, and thank you for everyone listening. And you can find me on unicornjazz.com, all kinds of amazing things we do. I like to just close with, if you are a parent, if you're an educator, school librarian, principal, or know someone who has a kid that goes to school, as things open up, I still do virtual school visits, and I can do it in my studio. And as things open up, I know that we are creating a list of in-person school visits for the next 2, 3, 5 years. And I cannot wait for that. The best days of my life, and I tell this to students as I'm in front of them, this is the best day of my life, to be able to share with you all this collective wisdom that has been given to me.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And we'll make sure for all of you that you have Lisa's information, and definitely take her up on that. And anything we can do. I mean, our kids we're all going through craziness. It seems to be even more impactful for children. So if we can find ways to lift them up, if we can find ways to support them, if we can find ways to let them know that it's okay, then we should do that. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being a listener of the Rutledge Perspective, for downloading. I appreciate every single listen. I appreciate every single person who downloads. I know we all have choices, and I thank you for choosing to be a part of this show. Check out the show notes. Check out Lisa. Make sure you go to her space, unicornjazz.com, right? Not .org.
Yes.
Yeah, unicornjazz.com. Check it out. If you can give a book, or know people can give a book, please do that. We will catch you next week on the Rutledge Perspective. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye. You've been watching the Rutledge Perspective. Thank you for tuning in. If we have given you a different perspective, or if you've learned something new that you hadn't thought about before, please subscribe to the Rutledge Perspective podcast where you get your favorite podcasts, and give us a like on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. We really appreciate it. And your feedback is important as well, as we use that to inform our next episodes. You can also head over to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and download a freebie called Where's My Mojo that can really help you get out of your rut, or maybe talk you back off that ledge of frustration. You can also find previous episodes of the Rutledge Perspective on laurelrutledge.com. I really appreciate your tuning in. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.